Okay, we are live. So welcome to this edition of the Kubewarden monthly community meeting. Welcome to everybody. So we have quite an agenda today. We are going to talk a bit about a new version of the Kubewarden UI. And we're also going to have a sneak peek at what is going to be part of the next release of Kubewarden. So we are going to release Kubewarden 1.7. We plan to release that in September, and we will talk a bit about what is coming up with this release. The first item on the agenda is from Jordan, and it's about the UI. So Jordan, stage is yours.
Thank you, Flavio. Let me share this.
Yes, it works.
Okay. So with, let's see, I need to get this out of the way, sorry. Okay. So with the latest release of the UI, 1.1.0, we have a new concept that we call the extension catalog image, which this is going to be used for a couple of different purposes, but mainly for AirGap installations, or if you want to push an image into a private registry, this will give you the ability to. And I'll show you in Rancher 275, we have added this menu item over here for managing extension catalogs. And this is going to bring us to a new screen that allows us to import an extension catalog image. So I've already taken the liberty of pushing this Kubewarden image, wrong one. Where did I put it? No, where did I put it? That's not the one. Never mind. I was going to push it into a private registry, so it would be easier to show the pool secrets, but I'll just show taking from this repository here. I'm just going to take this image for the latest release, and I'm going to plug this into the catalog image reference. If this was on my private registry, I would just put in my registry image, as well as any pool secrets that I need to deploy it with. And so I'm just going to hit load here. And what this is going to do is it's going to load that image. It's going to create a deployment as well as a service and its own Helm repository, which actually has given us a chart for the 1.1 release. So I can install this, and this is going to install the chart that's housed in this repository that has been created by our catalog image reference. I'll just go ahead and reload. And with that, Kubewarden is installed. And you can see it here in my local cluster. I've already installed the Kubewarden controller, so I have everything as well as the policy servers and cluster admission policies. But what's great about this is that it will allow you to take your own, or take this catalog image reference and push it into your own registry. So you don't have to be reliant on GitHub. And with that, I think I am finished with my demo.
Thanks, Jordan. So this is another great way to run. This is one step required in order to be able to run Kubewarden fully inside of an AirGap environment. So this was really needed. It's an improvement over what we already had. So thanks a lot for that. And now, as you have seen inside of Jordan's demo, he was running Kubewarden 1.6.0, which is the current release, but we are working on what is going to be the next release of Kubewarden 1.7.0. And this week, or the last week, I think, it was last week, I was on vacation, yeah. We tagged 1.7.0 release candidate 1. And we would like to talk a bit about some of the new items that are coming up with this release. So The first one is the audit check feature. And for this one, I think Victor has something to show.
Yep, let me just share the screen. So with this, we should be seeing the screen.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the audit feature? Let's just get a little explanation first. I'm just gonna try to not do a spoiler. And I suppose
Can you
are
maybe
seeing,
increase a bit the
yes.
font size? Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Sounds good. So the audit feature is an audit check, and it's a continuous audit check that runs in the background for the whole cluster. And that audit check runs and evaluates all the policies that are deployed in the cluster by default. And that means that now we can check what's in the cluster. So before that, before having the audit check, Kubewarden as a policy engine was using the validation and mutation webhooks to just check the operations against the cluster. Create a resource, update a resource, delete a resource. And that means that is kind of like a stopgap for everything that happens in the cluster. But once a thing is already in the cluster, or maybe because you already have a cluster deployed and you would like to evaluate what's in the cluster to see if the cluster is secure and so on, because you are installing Kubewarden after you have set up the cluster, you had no way to do that. But now with the audit check feature, you can do that. So I think it makes sense if I go into a little showcase on how it looks, and then we can get more into the details and things about it. So here you can see that I have a cluster deployed. In that cluster, I have the usual things. I have Ser Manager deployed, and then I have Kubewarden stack, and then a community service called Policy Reporter that we will see later on. So we have deployed Kubewarden as normally. For enabling the audit feature, we can see in the values of Kubewarden controller, which are these ones here in the bottom, we have a new field, which is audit scanner. Here we can see that we can enable it. So it comes disabled by default, but you can enable it, and it's backwards compatible in that sense. And then with that, you have the usual. You can see that it has configuration options for a cron job, because the audit scanner runs in a cron job and runs by default every 60 minutes. And you can see that it comes with a service account, because the audit scanner is going to need to have a look at all the resources that are in the cluster, and it's going to need to save those results from evaluating those resources somewhere. And then some things and so on. So how does the cron job look like? Well, pretty simple. No, we have here a cron job. I have configured it to run every 3 minutes. In this case, we are saving 3 completed jobs and so on. And in this cluster, if we look at the cluster emission policies, we can see that we have 7 here. We have the default ones that are of the PSP category. You can see here and to the right that are PSP category, these ones, and they are severity medium. Maybe these 2 new columns are a surprise to you because they are new and they are being shipped in 1.7.0 when it ships. And we can see also that we have a policy, the environmental variable secret scanner, that is being deployed by hand. You can see that these 6 in monitor mode are the default ones, and then we have deployed the environmental variable scanner policy in protect mode. Okay, so with this, we have the policies running, we have the audit scanner running. What happens? It runs and it saves the results into policy reports, which is a CRD from the community. It comes from the working group policy of Kubernetes. And we create 1 policy report per namespace. You can see here for the Ser Manager namespace, we have the policy report, and we have 9 passes and 0 fails and so on. For the default namespace, we have 18 passes and 3 fails. So something has been rejected there by Kubewarden, or Kubewarden thinks that something is not as it should be. So with this information, you can have a look at that. We could get into detail using the usual clients, to see these CRDs. But if you remember, I deployed Policy Reporter, which is a service from the community, and it provides a UI for all of this. So we can have a look at that. Let me just move super fast. Now you should be able to see the Policy Reporter UI. So here you can see the Policy Reporter UI. This comes from the community. And you can see that here we are in the dashboard. We can see that there's some failing policy results. This is kind of like a summary. If we go to the policy reports, which are namespaced, we can see here per namespace the results, the same way that we were seeing each policy report per namespace and so on. So for example, here Kubewarden is telling us, oh, wait, there's a pod called Nginx, and the policy no privilege escalation is saying that it's failing. And we can see why here. It says one of the containers has privilege escalation enabled. If you see the severity, it says info because this policy was run in monitor mode. And you can see here this other policy, which is the cap environmental variable secret scanner, that is saying that the engine secrets pod is failing. And this is in medium severity because it's actually blocking things. The policy is actually blocking things. This was deployed before Kubewarden, so this is already in the cluster, but so this is a violation of medium severity because it's already happening. And you can see the usual Kubewarden output on why the policy considers this a violation. In this case, it's because there's an RSA private key and there's an email address. So those are secrets that shouldn't be there. And then, yeah, you have all the passing policy reports per namespace and so on. So if you know Policy Reporter, maybe you are already acquainted with all of this. Of course, you can filter by kind of resources, by severities that now we support in Kubewarden, by namespaces, and we have then categories depending on the policies and so on. So for us in Kubewarden, the categories and the severities are new. How we have implemented them? Well, we ship the policies with those set, and they are set in the metadata annotations of the policy definition. So if we go to cluster emission policies and we just do a YAML of whatever, we can see here these 2 new annotations that are set. So you as a policy author can set it as whatever you see fit. If for you this is a critical issue and severity critical, then you can put it as critical, for example. And how do you as a policy author get the default values for this? As usual, you can do a KWCTL scaffold of your policy. And with the new version of KWCTL for 1.7.0, now it's under C, once we release it, it will take from the metadata of the policy creator the default values. So then you have here your definition, and then you can reuse it or change it and so on. So yeah, that's the gist of the audit scanner, from the user side. And
before you move forward, there is one thing that I wanted to ask. When you were showing all the policies that are deployed in the cluster, I saw that there was also another column which looks like a new entry, which was about the background checks, something like that.
Yes.
What is this about?
So the background checks, yeah, I totally forgot about that, Flavio. Good point. So let's see, for example, a policy. Let's see all the policies, So I was talking how the policies by default, get run by the audit scanner. So you can see there's a background audit column here. This is true. So all of them are considered by the audit scanner to be run. You could decide for a policy to not be run by the audit scanner. Maybe you prefer to not appear in that audit scan list. Also, there's some intrinsic limitations, no, Flavio, for the audit scanner. For example, policies can check for create, update, delete operations on resources, but the update operation, it's a bit ambiguous, no? Because depending on what you update on the resource, then the policy is going to behave in one way or the other. So in that sense, the audit scanner cannot foresee what kind of update operation is going to happen. So we have decided to not check those update operations. Of course, it's going to check for creates and deletes, and maybe this could be improved in the future for sure. But for now, we are not checking that. For sure, I mean, we have worked on this. Okay, another one. Users, no? I mean, when one does a policy that checks for the user that from what the request comes from, that normally means a service account.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the audit scanner is gonna, as we have talked, I think I've talked about it a bit, it's gonna run with its own service account because it needs minimal permissions to read all the resources on the cluster or change, write things into policy reports. That means that the audit scanner, by running on its own service account, cannot pretend to be a different service account, and it doesn't make much sense because it doesn't know about the service accounts and so on. So that's one intrinsic limitation also of the audit scan. And then we have decided also there's policies, not that when you define the policies and the resources it applies to, if you are specific about the amount of resources, then we treat them in the background audit. If you put an asterisk, for now, we are not running those policies in the background audit. We could decide to just check all of those programmatically in the future and so on, but for now, we are not doing that. I think, how am I doing? I think maybe I'm forgetting something, but.
I think you even provided more information than the one I asked, which is totally fine, so no worries. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All of this, I mean, we are in the process of doing the 1.7 release. Of course, all of this is going to end up in the documentation as always.
Yeah.
And yep. And I just want to point, as always, that, the design for all of this and the decisions, Kubewarden, we always develop in the open. So all the design and all the decisions end up in RFC documents, and we iterate on them and so on. So you can have a look on why we do things this way and other considerations that we take.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You also add another item on the agenda, which was about some changes done to the helm charts. Do you want to share something about that?
Yeah, these are small changes. I remember about them because, when Jordan was talking about the improvements to being able to do AirGap. So we are also gearing up now on that front. So for example, for the policies, for the default policies and for the policies that are WASI modules, we wanted to provide a possibility to change the default OCI registry from where you would download those default policies, because maybe you are installing Kubewarden and then you're taking the default policies and mirroring them inside of an organization or an AirGap. So now here in recommended policies, we have the, if I find it, maybe I cannot find it because I'm not in the correct branch, which could be. But there's a new a field that allows us to set the registry for the recommended policies, for example.
Yeah.
And yep.
Yes, we introduced that because some people, for example, they do already have a registry that we use for their AirGap environment, but this registry does not support OCI artifacts, and all our policies are OCI artifacts. And so some people want to set up a second registry that is capable of hosting OCI artifacts. And with this new rearrangement of the Helm chart, by default, we try to pull everything from the same registry, be it the container images and the policies. But if you fall into this special use case, then you can pull the policies from this OCI compatible registry that you just set up for that.
Yep, that's it. And here it is, recommended policies, default policies registry.
Yeah, so if you leave this empty, the system default registry is used as written here in the docs, in the comment. Otherwise, this is where the policies are going to be pulled from. Cool.
Also, for those folks using Rancher, we have fixed some issues and improved some things for using the global cattle system default registry, which means that if you are used to deploying with Rancher and you have an AirGap installation and so on, you may just use the .global so as it is here in the top .global.cattle system default registry, which in the past may or may have not worked as you needed it. So yeah, that's also nice.
Cool. Thanks, Victor. Okay, I guess we can move to the last topic. Just give me, I have to do, okay, thanks. I have to share my screen. First of all, I have to find, yep, found it.
I really like this one. The topic is a nice one.
Okay. All right. Good. So the last topic is about WASI policies. So this is a bit kind of low level. I don't want to scare anybody, but this is more for policy authors. So when writing a Kubewarden policy, you are writing a program using, I don't know, Go, Rust, we can use Swift, C#, a bunch of programming languages, and then you compile this code into the WebAssembly target. For many of these platforms, I would say for all of them, actually, we are already building a WASI WebAssembly module, which is a WebAssembly module, which is leveraging some WASI system calls in order to work. It's a WebAssembly module, which is designed to run outside of the browser. Okay, this is the really short story behind that. And there is a way that we use to allow this policy to share data with the policy server, with the runtime, the host of the policy. And this is something that I think it's out of scope to talk about right now. It works really well, and we're really happy about that. However, fast forward, when writing Go policies, as you probably know, we have to use the tiny Go compiler, which is an alternative Go compiler, which works great. It can produce WebAssembly modules targeting WASI. These are small modules, and they work fine. However, it has some limitations, given it's not fully compatible with official Go compiler, meaning that some code, especially the one doing complex stuff, importing a lot of libraries that are relying on some functionalities that are not supported by TinyGo, this code won't work. That's kind of an issue that we have worked around so far, because as you know, you can write Go policies for Kubewarden by using TinyGo. We have provided a set of SDKs that you can use to write them. We even went so far as to provide an SDK for Kubernetes objects that you can use, because the official Kubernetes SDK doesn't work because it is using some features that TinyGo doesn't support yet. So this is all working. But what is really exciting is that the next release of the Go official compiler, which is currently in release candidate phase. So Go 1.21 is going to introduce official support for WASI, which means that it will be able to it will be possible to compile a Go program using the official Go compiler into a WebAssembly module that can be run outside of the browser. And we started to play around with the Edge version of the Go compiler, and we have been pleasantly surprised by it, meaning that some of the libraries that we were trying to consume previously from TinyGo are working, and this opens a lot of interesting opportunities to us. However, the Go 1.21 release is not going to offer a full story. There are going to be some limitations around how the host can interact with these WebAssembly modules. And these limitations would not allow us to use the communication mechanism that we currently have in place, the one that allows TinyGo, Rust, Swift, C# policies to talk with our host. But we wanted so much to be able to play with the official Go compiler that we introduced this new policy communication protocol, so to say, and we're going to call it WASI. Just because this is vanilla WASI. The way it works, and this is all going to be documented. It works by having a WASI module is going to be like a standard command line tool. So you will write, I can show you some code for ones that are into Go. So this is a template. Like always, we offer templates for quickly starting a new policy. This is a template of a policy written in Go that makes use of this WASI communication protocol that we introduced. So it has a main, and the thing is, it reads all the data to process from the standard input, and then
Flavio,
yeah.
I wonder because I'm not seeing a Go code, but I'm seeing the TokyoRS.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong. Give me a second.
Then, yep, perfect.
Okay, it was sharing the wrong screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so basically, we have a main, and then we read all the information from the CLI. This is going to be like writing a standard CLI program, which takes two subcommands. One is for doing validation, and the other one is to do a validation of the settings. And basically, we read the data from the standard input, and then we write the results, the response to the standard output. And this is it. It's a really simple way. It's like a CGI, if you remember how it worked in the old days, but it works. And so in the next community meeting, I will show what we have been building up with it. And I'm sure that you will be impressed by that. It has, however, some limitations, So first of all, I would say this is something that you should not be using unless you really you desperately need to use the official Go compiler. If you're writing something using Rust or the other programming languages, just stick with what we have covered. If you are writing a policy with Go and you don't need to use some fancy Go library that is not supported by TinyGo yet, then just stick with official guidelines. This is really for people who want to do edge stuff, all right? And hopefully this communication protocol is going to be dropped one day once some of the issues of the Go compiler are going to be addressed, and then it will be possible for us to use the traditional, so to say, communication protocol between the host and the guest, also with Go programs compiled by the official Go compiler. So here we have an example. As I said, this is a working policy that deals with annotations, I think. Yeah. And as always, it has GitHub Actions that are dealing with everything. Now I see there is a failure over there. We have to look a bit into that. And there were we were using a Go from the Edge branch, from their master branch. Now that a release candidate is out, we will switch to the release candidate. And yeah, I guess this is it. I hope it was not too scary, confusing. It will all make sense when I show you what we have been building up with it.
It sounds super cool, no? To be honest. So then, yeah, this uses SD in, SD out, and so on. And then the next steps would be for Go, no, to be able to provide the possibility to call functions directly, no, in a sense.
Yes, that's the limitation I was hinting at. So because with the way it works for us is when we build a WebAssembly module, you can also say on top of importing some functions from the host, the module, can I also expose some capabilities, some functions that the host can invoke and make use of. At the end of the day, our policies are like shared libraries, so they expose symbols that can be consumed by whoever is linked against this shared library. The problem is that the WebAssembly modules that so far can be produced by the Go compiler, the official one, they cannot export functions, and we need to be able to export functions. And so in order to work around this limitation, we introduce this CGI mode for writing policies. Good. That was the last item we had on the agenda. And yeah, I guess this is it for today. I honestly don't know if we will do the meeting during the month of August, because it will be, I guess a lot of people are going to be on vacation. So if you are watching this recording and you want the meeting to happen, just reach out to us. Let's talk about that on the Slack channel. We will also bring up the topic on the Slack channel, of course. Otherwise, yeah, see you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
See you.
So.